Hello, Eric. Could you please tell us a little bit about your lifestyle in Redruth?
My name is Eric. Both my wife and I come from Redruth, a small town in Cornwall. It's very quiet here, and there's not much to do. When I was a teenager in the 60s, I thought it was awful. It was so boring and provincial. All I could think about was going to live in an exciting and cosmopolitan city like London. But now I have to admit that I enjoy my life. It's a friendly place to live. Everyone knows each other. And it's both safe and quiet. It's never stressful here. The people are neither rude nor cold. Some people don't even close the door to their house. Redruth is also much cheaper than London. We have a nice garden where we grow our own fruit and vegetables. We like to take advantage of the countryside and go for long walks. Now, neither my wife nor I want to leave Redruth.
Nadia, you've worked as a journalist in both India and England. Can you tell us about some of the differences between the lifestyle in India and Britain?
Well, lifestyles in India are very diverse, just like England. But here are some things I've observed. To start with, the family is the centre of the lifestyle in India, and it's typical to find several generations of a family living together. Of course, the eldest male is the head of the family and always has the last word.
What about England?
In England, families are much smaller. In fact, the number of single-parent families is growing quickly. It's also very common for young English people to move out of their family home when they turn 18.
What are the differences between working in India and England?
In India, people work very hard. We have a 6-day working week and the average person works 11 hours every day. That's 66 hours a week compared to 40 hours a week in England. Teenagers in India also work hard and they spend most of their free time at home studying.
You mean they don't enjoy going out?
Naturally, they like to go out and have fun, but when they do go out, they don't drink too much. In England, so many young men and women enjoy going out and drinking too much. Also, young people in India have a lot of respect for their parents and for older people in general. You know, once I interviewed some Indian students about their opinion of kissing in public. They said that they didn't do it because it would offend older people. That type of attitude is completely impossible in Britain today.
What do Indians enjoy doing in their free time?
A lot of people enjoy playing or watching cricket, which is the national sport of India. Football is also extremely popular, just like in England. Perhaps the most popular pastime is going to the cinema to watch a Bollywood film. Last year, over 4 billion people went to the cinema in India. Also, many people enjoy staying at home to watch Indian-made soap operas on the telly.
Thank you, Nadia. Urban tribes are groups of young city people who have common interests and ideologies that are very different from traditional culture. They usually dress alike and enjoy listening to the same music. Two very identifiable urban tribes are skaters and Goths. Listen to two members of these tribes talk about their lifestyle.
I've been a Goth for 2 years now, but this urban tribe started in the 80s. Let's see, I'd have to say that fashion is important to the Goth lifestyle. We'll wear anything as long as it's black. Goths look strange, but we want to look strange. Being different and unconventional is part of our lifestyle. And you should know that we are peaceful and tolerant of everybody. Goth is a night lifestyle. On weekends, I dress up and meet my friends at the popular Goth nightclubs, where we dance to the latest Goth music. When we're not clubbing, my friends and I like reading science fiction and horror books. In fact, we call ourselves Goths, from Gothic literature from the 18th century. You know, books like Dracula, Frankenstein.
I'm a skater. We're called skaters because, well, we skateboard. My friends and I skate everywhere we go. On the city streets, in the parks. I even skateboard to school every day. We like having fun and being active, but being a skater isn't as easy as it looks. In fact, it can be really dangerous. I should know. I've already broken my arm twice. Skating requires skill and lots of practice, so you have to exercise and keep in shape. On weekends, we skateboard in the park. Skaters are a street culture, so my friends and I don't go to clubs very much. Besides, most of us are teenagers, so we're too young to get into the nightclubs. I guess about 75% of us are boys. Skaters don't care much about fashion, but we need to dress comfortably because skating is a sport after all. What did you do in the Big Apple in the 90s?
I lived in the Big Apple in the 90s.
When did you live in the Big Apple?
I lived in the Big Apple in the 90s.
Who lived in the Big Apple in the 90s?
I lived in the Big Apple in the 90s.
Where did you live in the 90s?
I lived in the Big Apple in the 90s.
1.
Who loves New York? Dan loves New York.
2.
What does Dan think of New York? Dan loves New York.
3.
What does Dan love? Dan loves New York. More than 80% of young people in the United States say they want to live in New York City. I can understand that. I lived in the Big Apple in the 90s, and it was fantastic. New York is neither boring nor slow, and it's also one of the most liberal cities in the country. Perhaps that's why you can see so many urban tribes there. Urban tribes are groups of young people who have similar lifestyles, interests and ideologies that are different from general culture. These young people usually identify with each other through fashion and music. However, the city has both its good and bad points. To see if it's the right place for you, think about these questions. Are you a maximizer? Do you constantly want more? Maximizers are people who are always looking for the best. They are never satisfied, and they frequently change jobs, hobbies, and sometimes even partners. New York City is a great city for someone who is a maximizer, because it has the best of everything. The best restaurants, the best museums, and the best jobs. So, are you a person who is always looking for more? If so, you might be a maximizer. Do you want to earn a lot of money? New York City has some of the best paid jobs in the world, but also the strongest competition. Neither the rich nor the poor have an easy life in New York. In fact, it is both difficult and stressful for everyone. Still, the city continues to attract ambitious men and women from all over the world, and you need to be both talented and hard-working if you want to succeed there. Also, it has the highest cost of living in the country, so you'll need that extra money. Is an interesting life more important to you than a happy life? New Yorkers are not famous for being happy. In fact, they have a reputation for being unhappy. But that's not a problem for them. They are ambitious, which means that they are never completely happy with the status quo. If you want to do well in New York, either you change or you don't succeed. Is New York City the right city for you? So, what do you think? It may not be an easy place to live, but the millions of people who have lived there agree on one thing. It's amazing. Welcome to Different People, Different Lifestyles. On today's programme, we're going to listen to 3 people from 3 very different parts of the United States. The East Coast, the Midwest, and the West Coast.
I'm Robert Cohen. I grew up in a liberal family in Brooklyn, New York, and now I'm a lawyer for a small human rights organization in Manhattan. I live in Brooklyn. I work long hours, and the journey into Manhattan takes me over an hour, so I'm not at home very much. I usually have lunch and dinner in restaurants. I have to be careful with money because New York is expensive. I enjoy taking advantage of everything a big city has to offer. The theaters, the movies, the museums. I'm single, and I live alone, but I meet a lot of beautiful women in the nightclubs.
I'm Vivian Chang. I was born here in San Francisco, California, but both of my parents were Chinese immigrants. My parents taught me the value of hard work, family, and marriage. Like my father, I'm a doctor. I believe in keeping healthy. I'm a vegetarian, and I ride my bicycle to work every day. Being a doctor is stressful, so in my free time, I enjoy getting out of the city and taking long, relaxing walks near the ocean.
My name is Richard King. I live with my wife and 3 children on a small farm near Urbana, Illinois. I started working when I was 15, and I moved out of my parents' house when I finished school at 18. So I guess you could say I have always been independent. My family and I are religious, and we go to church every Sunday morning. Having a farm is hard, physical work, and it means waking up at 4 o'clock every morning, even Saturdays and Sundays. As you can imagine, I don't go out much. I prefer to stay at home and watch movies on TV with my wife and kids. I guess my life's a little boring, but I like it. Abilities. Cheap. Advantage. Basic. Because. Challenging. Chose. Energy. Is. Job. Nature. Person. Raise. Simple. Society. States. Touch. Vegetable. Childhood.
Produce. Decide. Lifestyle. House. Easy. Plays. Use. Things. Choose. Lunch. Future. Switch. Generous. Image. Fridge. Gym.
Modern society, no thank you. Have you ever dreamt of living a simpler lifestyle? Would you like to eat homegrown vegetables, own fewer things, or even produce your own energy? If so, you're in good company. More and more people around the world are getting back to basics and living off the grid. Living off the grid means literally to disconnect your house from the electric power lines that pollute the environment. Instead, people living off the grid use cleaner energy sources such as solar and wind power. However, living off the grid involves much more. First of all, it means living closer to nature, where you can grow your own food. Also, people who live off the grid spend less money, so they live in smaller homes and own fewer possessions. Most of these people don't drive cars. In the United States, approximately 300,000 people are currently living off the grid, and they chose this unconventional lifestyle for a variety of reasons. Many people say they are tired of living in a materialistic society and prefer to get back in touch with nature. Many don't trust the government and prefer to be more independent. For others, however, it is an economic necessity. Often they have lost their jobs and their houses, so they need to live somewhere cheaper. One thing these people have in common is that they want something better for themselves and their children. Getting back to the simple life has many advantages, but it's not so easy. For example, when the electricity goes out, either you fix it yourself or live without it. Life off the grid also requires many different skills. For instance, you need to operate solar panels for electricity, get water from wells, and farm the land for food. That's why many people decide to share resources and form off-the-grid communities. In this way, they can take advantage of each other's land and abilities. For example, One person can raise animals, another person can grow fruit and vegetables, and someone else controls the water and energy. Philosophers throughout history have written about the benefits of simple living. Over 250 years ago, the French writer Voltaire said that we should all cultivate our garden if we want to be happy. More and more people today agree with him.